Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack, and if you guys are looking for PTCGO codes, including the latest set Chilling Reign, make sure you check out the Potown store where you can use code Omnipoke for a 5% discount on your order. Today we are back with our 5-deck series, and this time going to be taking a look at Rapid Strike Urshifu. The Rapid Strike package in general gained a lot of new cards in Chilling Reign. And it was already one of the most diverse kind of archetypes in the format already. But in this set has kind of blown it wide open again. We have a lot of new options to play it with. So we're going to be looking at 5 different Rapid Strike Urshifu lists today, just briefly in a similar vein to some of the other 5 ways to play videos we've done. Kicking things off is actually going to be Rapid Strike Urshifu Inteleon, which is a really hot deck at the moment, and one that's taken me by surprise a little bit in how successful it's been. It's been seeing some pretty decent results at some of the early tournaments. Basically, we're building Rapid Strike with sort of around this Inteleon engine. The new Rapid Strike Inteleon has the Quick Shooter ability, which lets you put damage counters, 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon once during your turn. So with a couple of these up, we can start threatening things like Dedenne, Crobat, even some of the 200 and 220 HP basic V Pokemon with Gmax Rapid Flow in combination with Persimmon and Telescopic Sight. So you've got kind of, this is really pushing into that bench sniping kind of ability, whilst also being able to deal with Mews mid-turn. So one thing that can really be detrimental for Rapid Strike Urshi is if your opponent drops a Mew down, you have to take the turn either Gale Thrusting it or Rapid Flowing it just to then be able to do some more sniping later on. Well, across 2 turns or even 1 turn, if you can get all 3 of the Inteleon out, you can actually take out a Mew immediately and then still be able to go for a Gmax Rapid Flow. So yeah, really, really nice to have some mid-turn damage manipulation. Obviously, the Inteleon line brings Drizzile, which helps with consistency with Shady Dealings. When you evolve it, letting you search for a trainer card. That's why we're not really running a Jirachi package or anything. Our consistency is coming from Drizzile. We've also got the new Sobble, which helps you get some of these basics out early, which is pretty cool. Obviously, we've got things like Persimmon, as I mentioned earlier, to really put pressure on the bench, and still running Jirachi as well to help out with some of those more awkward psychic Pokemon, including but not limited to Calyrex. Other than that, it's a pretty standard list. We've gone a little bit heavier on the ball search, just because obviously your whole engine is now built around evolving into Drizziles and being able to search for some of your supporters. So we've got a variety of different counts of these search cards. You can kind of play these in any combination you want. They're all really, really good, all serve a purpose. As well as things like Reset Stamp and Energy Spinner. Obviously, these are searchable with Shady Dealings, which is normally you would play these kinds of cards potentially in a Jirachi engine anyway, but because you can tutor them out, they're actually really, really strong in an Inteleon engine. And then similarly, we have a lot of Rapid Strike Pokemon, so we've gone for more of a Tower of Waters approach rather than switches, but we have got an Air Balloon and a Telescopic Sight in there just to, like I say, be able to really pressure down some of these non-evolving Vs on our opponent's bench. Pre-standard support account and a couple of capture energy along with the regular Rapid Strike and fighting energy just to be able to get your basics out early and make sure you're able to start getting into these Drizziles, which gets you into the game and then eventually gets you into Inteleons as well. So yeah, the deck's been doing really, really well lately. It was one that I wasn't overly impressed with. I thought the Jirachi engine was going to be a bit more consistent. I'm still not sold that this is the best way to play Rapid Strike, but it's definitely won me over a little bit with how successful it's been doing so far. Next up, we will look at a bit more of a standard Jirachi-based engine. Very similarly, basically the only new Pokemon here is Persimmon. We're playing the double Telescopic Sight again to really try and lean into this Gmax Rapid Flow. It can be a bit risky. Like I say, one Mew can kind of scupper your plans a little bit. But obviously, if you're able to deal with the Mew, then there's going to be a lot of basics, typically 2 prize Pokemon that your opponent is going to put down that could really, really disrupt you. That could be really, really disruptive for them, basically nothing will be safe. That's also why we're playing an Echoing Horn. We can very quickly, if our opponent decides to hold some of these basics and not play them down, we can potentially feast on the same Dedenne's Crobats that we do early game, which is obviously very, very useful in terms of being able to have alternate win conditions rather than just hoping our opponent puts some of these Pokemon down. Other than that, again, a pretty standard engine. Similarly, once again, we've gone for the Tower of Waters engine, but you could maybe go for something else. But I think Tower of Waters is actually pretty good right now. We do have things like the Martial Arts Dojo, that you can play if you maybe wanted to lean into this basic energy count a little bit more. We are playing basics over stone. You can play stone fighting energy in general. It's actually a pretty good card, but unfortunately Calyrex, with a heavy stone energy count, Calyrex can completely lock this deck out. Calyrex is always a bit of a bad matchup anyway, but you can definitely find routes to victory in that matchup. But if 8 of your 9 energy are locked out from Calyrex using its first attack in the early turns, it's going to make it basically impossible to win. So we are trying to balance that Calyrex matchup out a little bit. As such, you can play dojos, like I say, but yeah, we've gone for the Tower of Waters approach just because Tower hasn't seen too much play lately, so trying to bring a bit of variety. But yeah, don't forget about dojo if you need some math fixing. Other than that, pretty standard. I mentioned the Echoing Horn, that's the only other major new card. We are leaning into the double telescopic sight with Persimmon, like I say. But yeah, we've seen this engine do very, very well. This is still going to be a great way to play Urshifu. This is still my personal favourite way to play Urshifu. Sort of straight Urshifu, I should say. So yeah, this is definitely pretty cookie cutter, but I think serves the purpose that it always has, which is great. The last kind of standard list is going to be Urshifu Cinccino. Obviously, this is another deck that's seen massive success. You can already tell how strong Urshifu is. It's coming into this format with a couple of fantastic engines on it, and it's engines that it can use already, and it's actually gaining a couple more, which is great. Pretty standard with this list as well. Honestly, there's actually only one new card in this list, and that's going to be the Persimmon. We've seen this list do well, the sort of 1 Jirachi, 1 Snorlax split with the 3/3 Cinccino. Pretty standard at this point, with a couple of stamps, couple of Cheryls, couple of Bird Keepers, just to kind of keep the ball rolling, trying to build up a hand rather than discard draw with research. We want to build up a hand and try and have lots of options for the turns our opponent tries to do stuff. We have some captures for the early turns to try and start getting our Mincinos and things like Snorlax and Jirachi out. And yeah, other than that, again, a very, very standard list. Pretty cookie cutter, but that's just because the deck is so solid. Once it gets online and rolling, it's very, very scary. And it's the only Urshifu deck we have here today that actually runs the Cheryl engine to be able to kind of continually Gale Thrust over and over and really prove to be a problem for the opponent. So yeah, pretty cookie cutter, similarly with the Jirachi, but we know they're good, so there's no point in changing too much, in all fairness. The first of the kind of slightly crazier lists is Urshifu Moltres. This was something that me and Joe actually discussed well before the set came out. It was something that we were talking about, and we've tested it a fair bit, to be honest, and it's really interesting. It's very similar. It feels very similar to Urshifuzation, which was something that we tested a little bit in the Battle Styles meta, that just fell short a little bit just because it was trying to do a little bit too much. Sometimes it does feel like this deck is doing something similar, but just having Galarian Moltres as an inbuilt answer to the Calyrex deck is fantastic. Auraburn will one-shot a Calyrex from any HP, which is great, and it's not difficult for them to return the KO, but because of the Dire Flame Wings, it actually doesn't take long to set up a Moltres, which is pretty good. And in all fairness, we are playing double energy switch, which is we can use in combination with Dire Flame Wings to be able to set up Urshifu's turn after turn to G-Max Rapid Flow. But equally, we can also set up Moltres in a turn as long as there's an energy on the board already. So it's actually pretty good, both in combination with setting up Urshifu's, but also threatening a Calyrex, threatening a Moltres out of nowhere against Calyrex can actually be done in this list. Other than that, you kind of get the gist of this. We're really trying to pressure with Urshifu. We can G-Max Rapid Flow, like I say, turn after turn, because you can just be attaching a Rapid Strike and then going for the Dire Flame Wings plus Energy Switch combo to be able to Rapid Flow 2 turns in a row. That can be pretty brutal for some decks. Obviously, it's a lot of the time it's Urshifu's big late game push to try and win the game, but this means you can go for more of a tempo mid game play with it and then still be able to have that late game push. Doing 240 across 2 targets in 2 turns is pretty good, especially when there's so many Pokemon right now that you're hitting weakness on. You can actually sort of KO a Dedenne and set up a 2-prize Pokemon, and then Gust up and KO like a Crobat and KO that same 2-prize Pokemon if they can't evolve it. So it's actually very scary. This turns, like I say, it turns Rapid Flow from often a late game winning play to just a tempo play. And I feel like that's going to be something that this list does pretty well. Other than that, fairly high energy count just because we want to always be able to activate Dire Flame Wings. And similarly, that's why we're running the Viridian Forest package, just to be able to get these energies into the discard. Plus, it makes getting that turn 1 attachment onto Urshifu all that little bit easier. Despite only running 2 fighting energy, they are a lot more searchable now. So we have a lot of outs to turn 1 energy for Urshifu, with Jirachi being able to search out Viridian, which is pretty nice. We've tried a variety of different ways to build this list. A Moltres engine, a Jirachi engine, a no support Pokemon engine, and just going for Dedennes and Crobats, like a heavy Dedenne Crobat build, and no Scoop Up Nets or anything. And the list we've settled on at the moment is the Jirachi build, because it feels like it's still the most consistent. But yeah, there's definitely something here. It can, like I say, still feel like that Urshifuzation deck where there's just a little bit too much going on sometimes. But in certain situations, it feels like you can really put a lot of pressure on. Being able to do 190 into a 120 with Rapid Flow in combination with something like a Zigzagoon or a Passimian can also be KOing VMAXs on the bench whilst taking 2 prizes on things like Dedenne, or even 1 prize on a Crobat, a Jirachi or something like that. So this 190 damage is actually very, very relevant, and it's not just against Calyrex that it's going to be used, because it's a really nice kind of... Urshifu kind of has this soft damage cap to it, which is kind of the way they've tried to balance it. So Galarian Moltres, just being able to push over that boundary a little bit more, can be very useful against some VMAX matchups. So yeah, definitely try this one out. Has a bit of a rough time against some decks, but you can really put on some pressure with the Moltres, which is really cool. And finally, we are taking a look at a lightning build of Urshifu, which is something that we were both really, really hyped on at the start of Battle Styles. And honestly, I've still really enjoyed this deck, but I streamed a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, playing the deck, and we had 10 games, and some of the games it was still a little bit clunky, but some of the games where you're able to get the Cross Fist off, it feels so powerful. Being able to go sort of Gale Thrust into GMAX Rapid Flow, into a Cross Fist, is crazy, because that's so many damage counters across 3 turns, basically wherever you want. There's so many combinations of damage you can do with the 120 placements, and then the 100 and the 160, the 150 getting in there as well, along with things like Passimian to be able to, and Telescopic Sight to be able to buff that damage even more. You get a lot of counters on the board very, very quickly against certain decks, and if they can't or don't produce a Mew, it's very difficult for a lot of decks to keep up with this. So yeah, this list is really sort of building around that Cross Fist, but also with the addition of Tapu Koko, Prism Star, you can again get that GMAX Rapid Flow turn after turn, because you can go for the 1, and then you can pop a Koko, attach a Rapid Strike, and go for another Rapid Flow if you're unable to find the Zero Aura, or if you need to do damage to 2 things on the bench instead of the 100 to the active. So yeah, this is really pressuring that bench. That's why we've gone for the Echoing Horn, once again, to be able to really punish our opponent's discard pile. And similarly, we've gone for like a Tower of Water start engine, because there are a lot of Rapid Strike Pokemon that we can put down at some point in the game to be able to have free retreat, which is great. We have got a pretty heavy switch count instead of Air Balloons as well, just to be able to get into a Rapid Strike Pokemon to be able to make use of the Tower of Waters, which is nice. One of the other things to look at is the Spiral Energy. Spiral counts for Gale Thrust, or the Lightning for Cross Fist, which is very useful in combination with Rapid Strike. The one thing to note, of course, is, like I say, a Calyrex using its first attack can stop you from even ever being able to attach one of these energy, which is awkward in all fairness. So you can maybe move towards more of a Viridian Forest list and some fighting similar to the Moltres build. And again, that way it's going to be a way for you to get your Lightning Energy into the bin for Tapu Koko, as well as guarantee attachments in the early game to Urshifus. So yeah, that's 5 different lists. All 5 of them I think are very, very viable in all fairness. I could see all 5 of them easily making top 8 of some of these big tournaments, just because Rapid Strike is so strong right now. It gained a lot of really cool toys with things like Passimian and Echoing Horn, as well as just still having fantastic typing and being able to provide such tempo and pressure plays in the mid to late game out of nowhere. It's a really, really strong archetype. It's still my favourite archetype of the format. It was all the way through Battle Styles, and that hasn't changed going into Chilling Reign. So I definitely recommend you try one of these 5 lists out. And yeah, other than that, make sure you stick around we'll have one more 5 lists video to do in the next couple of days. That's going to be 5 single prize archetypes from Chilling Reign. And other than that, we'll then be hopefully starting to look at some improvements and changes to some of the older decks coming into this format. But yeah, it should be good. Make sure you stick around for that. And yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Omnipoke, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video. Cheers.